What's up, guys? NASCAR Player coming with a brand new NASCAR Heat 4 concept video, guys, and today I am going to be presenting to you guys a NASCAR Heat 4 franchise mode concept. But before we get into the video, shout out to my donators: NASCAR Champion 2016, Reverend Rasheem Stewart, NASCAR Fan 24, Kyle Larson 42, Fan Anthony Ortiz, Giancarlo Suarez, Lauren R 1993 Gaming, and DJ Craze _. Links to their channels will be in the description below. But before we get started, I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone that is a subscriber of mine, because we have reached 7,000 subscribers. This is a big deal to me, so thank you guys very much to everyone that has subscribed, and thank you to everyone that has subscribed and hit the notification bell. But without further ado, guys, let's get started. So now let's get right into the concept. So I just want to let you guys know real quick, it is a concept. This is not something that will be in NASCAR E4 unless the devs at 704 see it and they really like the idea and decide to put it in the game. But right now, this is just a concept video. Nothing is confirmed that any of these things will be in the game. It's just a concept that I decided to come up with, and a lot of people really wanted me to make a video on this because they like the concept, and to be honest, it is actually pretty cool, and I hope you guys really do enjoy it. So without further ado, guys, let's get started. This is the concept: NASCAR Heat 4 franchise mode concept. So basically, as you guys know, in NASCAR Heat 3 right now for career mode, we are allowed to own a race team. And with that race team, you could do multiple things, like hire staff to work on your car, or you guys could own different types of race cars or dirt cars, as whatever, depending on what type of league that you own a race team in, whether it's in the Extreme Dirt Series or even the Xfinity Series. You can own different types of cars that will be suitable for the tracks you race at, like short tracks or road courses. So I just scratched the surface on basically what owner mode in career mode basically gives you when you play NASCAR Heat 3 career mode. And I will say this right now, it had a lot of positive feedbacks from the people that did play career mode for NASCAR Heat 3. But I just want to let you guys know right now, this is the concept. The problem is right now, some people want to do owner mode in NASCAR Heat 3, but they don't want to go all the way through career mode sometimes. Like, some people for career mode, they just want to have a race team, and some of them just don't want to race. They just want to manage the money, manage the cars, and do a bunch of other things that we'll get into. So right now, this is a concept. Instead of having owner mode just for career mode, that can stay, that's not a problem, but we're going to make it its own mode, and that will be called franchise mode, which gives away the title, the franchise mode concept. So how this will work is you own the race team, and you could either drive the car or just own the race team. If you decide to drive the car, it's basically like how it was in career mode, just with a couple of things that will be new to be added. What will happen is you'll just drive the car. You won't have to hire a driver, but if you just decide to own the team, which you will manage, you will have to hire a driver, and you will hire drivers based on their star ranking. So as you guys know, in NASCAR E3 career mode, you can pick a race team, and it will show how many stars the race team is, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star. If you're just starting off with the franchise mode concept, or like if you're just starting off a franchise mode, you won't have that much money, so you really have to manage your budget. So most likely you'll start off with a driver that is for hire, that's probably like either 1 or 2 stars. Now, I know I should have started talking about this before I started talking about the drivers, but you would have to choose a difficulty, and difficulty will range from easy, medium, hard, and expert. If you go ahead and decide to put your franchise mode difficulty on easy, you will start off with a larger sum of cash than you would if you decide to have your difficulty for franchise mode on either medium, hard, or expert. So if you have your difficulty for franchise mode on easy, you will start off with more cash than you would if you decide to have your difficulty for franchise mode on either medium, hard, or expert. Now, if you want to know how the on-track, racing will be, depending on how hard it will be, how that will be, manipulated will be by how it's already done in NASCAR Heat 3 for career mode. And single player, there will be a rating, which will be the lowest would be 85, which would be the easiest, and the highest will be 105, which would be the hardest for either you or the driver you decide to hire to be racing for your team in the franchise mode. Now let's get to the really important part, and that is you managing your budget for your race team. Remember, in franchise mode, you are owning a race team. So depending on the amount of stars the equipment that you will be buying is going to depend on how much money it is. So if you decide to buy a 1-star chassis, it will cost less than if you bought a 5-star chassis. But if you buy a 5-star chassis, it would obviously be a better chassis for your car. So depending on how your budget is will depend on what type of stars you will have to buy for your equipment. And another thing that would be added is a crew chief. So how the crew chief will work is basically depending on the amount of stars the crew chief is when you hire him will depend on how good the crew chief is. So if you decide to hire a 1-star crew chief, obviously it will cost less to hire a 1-star crew chief than a 5-star crew chief, but the setup for the car and the race strategy will not be as good if you hire a 5-star crew chief. So the crew chief will obviously help out with the setup with the car, and it will obviously do the strategy for you, be like, hey, pit on this lap or pit on another lap depending on how long the race is and what type of track is it. So the crew chief will be playing a valuable role into helping you win races for your race team. And what I mean is depending on whether you drive the car as the owner and a racer. For instance, if you decide to just drive the car and not hire a racer, then the crew chief will help with strategy for you and obviously help with your setup. And how you'll be able to adjust all that stuff is you will go through practice and qualifying, and there'll be a menu up, be like, oh, what do you want with the car? Do you want it to be more loose or do you want it to be more tight? Another thing is obviously if you decide to hire a driver, the driver will communicate with the crew chief on its own, and the driver will also be communicating with the crew chief on strategy and how the car is handling, so you wouldn't have to worry about that if you decide to hire a driver. But if you do decide to go and race and own a race team at the same time, you would have to obviously work with the strategy the crew chief gives you, and you would obviously have to work with the setup that the crew chief gives you depending on whether it's 1-star or 5-star. You'll probably be racing with a 1-star setup if you have a 1-star crew chief, and you'll probably be racing with a 5-star setup if you decide to hire a 5-star crew chief. Same thing will also go for if you decide to hire a race engineer or mechanics. How this will work is if you decide to obviously hire a 1-star mechanic, it will be cheaper, but they'll obviously do not as good of a job than a 5-star mechanic that will cost more. And same thing for if you decide to hire a race engineer, it will cost less to hire a 1-star race engineer, but it wouldn't be as good as a 5-star engineer that will cost more and obviously do a better job. Also, another thing is you will be able to hire more than one mechanic, obviously, because there's obviously more than one mechanic that obviously works on the car or the cars. Another thing you guys would be able to hire is crew members, and you would hire the crew member separately. For instance, you would hire a gas man separate from you hiring a tire changer. And another thing you guys would be able to go and hire is a spotter, and depending on the amount of stars for the spotter and the crew members that you would obviously hire separately will depend on how well they are at their job and how much money it would cost to, hire them for your race team. But another thing is, once again, if you decide to hire a couple, 5-star crew members and a couple 1-star crew members, the chance of a 1-star crew member making a mistake or making the stop slower will be in play if you decide to hire a 1-star crew member, but it would obviously be cheaper. Same thing with the spotter. If you go ahead and decide to hire a 1-star spotter, the chances of that spotter making a mistake is obviously higher, but it will cost less to hire a 1-star spotter than it is a 5-star spotter. And same thing obviously goes with the crew members, but once again, you'll hire the crew members separately, so there you can have a 5-star tire changer but a 1-star gas man. That is very possible. Now, obviously, I'm not going to mention every single person you would have to hire for your race team, including back at the shop, because that would just drag the video on even longer. But basically, there's obviously more people that you would have to hire back at the shop. And all I'm going to say is, depending on how their rating is, obviously, is going to depend on how well of a job they do. And also, depending on their rating, will also depend on how much it costs for that person to do that job. So I'm not going to drag it on any longer for the hiring part. You guys understand the concept basically, and obviously there's more people you would have to hire back at the shop, but I'm not going to drag it on and basically talk about every single person that you have to hire and the 1-star and 5-star, because then I'll just be repeating myself for every single person. Let's get on to something that's also really important. That would be sponsorships. So as you guys would probably assume, sponsorships will play a huge role into franchise mode for your race team for multiple reasons. And one of those reasons will be if you have a good sponsor for your race team, then it would obviously make you earn more money per race because the sponsors will be paying you to put their brand on your race car. And also, depending on how much money you will earn from a race will depend on how much money that sponsorship will want to invest to putting their brand on your car, whether it is a primary sponsor or a secondary sponsor. So let's say Napa Auto Parts wants to invest more money than PPG Paint to have Napa Auto Parts be on your car, to have their advertisement or have their brand on their car. You would probably obviously go for Napa Auto Parts because Napa Auto Parts will pay you more to have their brand on your car than PPG Paint. And obviously it would also depend on how many weeks it wants to be a primary or a secondary sponsor. So you would have to work that out, and that's where franchise mode comes into. You would have to work that out on how sponsorships will work for each weekend, whether which will be your primary sponsor for the weekend or which will be your secondary sponsor for the weekend, and obviously depending on how much money that sponsor wants to put into your race team to put their brand on your car will depend on how much money you'll earn for that weekend. And obviously that sponsor could make a contract saying, oh, we want to have our brand on your car for a X amount of weeks. It obviously depends on how many weeks they would want to put their brand on your car. So that is just a little example. Something I would like to see new for franchise mode, obviously for the concept, is the ability to own a multi-car team. So let's say you're making a lot of money from your single car team and you want to expand to a 2-car team. You would buy a bigger shop and you would hire more mechanics and more of everything so you could own that multi-car team, whether it's 2, 3, or 4 teams for your race team. So basically, if you want to own a 2-car team, you could do that, but you'd obviously have to be investing a lot of money, and including if you want to own a 3-car team or a 4-car team, that is possible, which would obviously, to me, be really cool, because if you own a 4-car team, you would expand your workshop obviously a lot, and then you would have to be investing a lot of money, but you would obviously have to hire more mechanics and a lot of personnel to basically run a 4-car team. And another thing with this franchise mode concept that I'm giving you guys could start with any series to own a franchise in or a race team. And so if you just want to start off with owning a dirt team, you could do that. Or if you just want to own a truck team, you could do that. If you just want to own an Xfinity team, you could do that. Or if you just want to own a cup team, you can do that. And obviously, depending on which series you decide to own will depend on the difficulty on how the franchise will go. So it'll obviously be easier to manage and own a truck team than it would be to manage and own a cup team. But you don't have to, like, go through the ranks of owning teams. If you want to go straight out the gate and own a cup team, you could do that. Or if you want to just go straight out of the gate and own a truck team, you could do that, because it is franchise mode. You don't have to go through any career or anything. You just basically start your franchise or start your race team from whatever series you decide to want to own that race team in. And last couple of things I want to say before I close this video out is, depending on if your car or cars, depending on how many cars you do own for your race team, does get damaged, you would obviously have to pay money to repair it, but you would obviously hire personnel to repair your car, and that's what you'll be investing in, obviously, with the 1-star and 5-star deal. Another thing I want to say is, depending on how your race team goes in franchise mode will all depend on you. Whether your race team is having great on-track performance or bad on-track performance would obviously be because of you. Or if your race team is not having budget problems, or your race team is doing very well budget-wise, or if your race team is having sponsorship issues, or if your race team is not having sponsorship issues, that will all depend on how you are basically going through franchise mode and how you are running your race team. So obviously, most likely right out of the gate, you won't be having very well on track performances because you'll be worried obviously about budget and getting through the season and sponsorships. So depending on how you run your race team will depend on if you'll have budget issues, sponsorship issues, or you're having not as well on track performances as you wish you would. Or obviously, it also depend on if you have no budget issues or no sponsorship issues, or if you're doing very well with your on-track performance, or if you decide to, own a multi-car team. It would all play into how you run your race team, which will be franchise mode. So obviously, how you will make profit to how you'll invest into your race team on personnel will all depend on obviously how much money you're making per races and how well you are doing in the races and how your sponsorship deals are. So once again, you are the owner of your race team, and you'll be the reason why your race team or race teams, depending on if you own a multi-car team or not, will either have sponsorship issues versus not having sponsorship issues, have on-track performance issues versus not having on-track performance issues, and having budget issues versus not having budget issues. Everything will happen because of you, and this is my franchise mode concept. Thank you guys all for watching. If you guys are new, don't forget to smack that sub button. Comment down below your opinions about this franchise mode concept. If you would add anything, please let me know in the comments down below. And also, just letting you guys know, I just scratched the surface of this video. There is multiple things I would obviously say more into this video, but I just didn't want to drag this video on for much longer. And if you are working at 704, or you are somewhat in the loop with 704 games, and if you are watching this video and you want to have more information on my franchise mode concept, feel free to DM me on Twitter at IDK Player. DMs will always be open. So thank you guys all for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy this franchise mode concept. If you guys are new, don't forget to smack that sub button. Thank you guys so much for 7,000 subscribers, and remember, when you guys do smack that sub button, don't forget to hit the notification bell, because when NASCAR Heat 4 news starts to roll around, just like we did with NASCAR Heat 3, we'll be uploading videos left and right with all the news for NASCAR Heat 4, basically like we did with NASCAR Heat 3 over the summer. We're going to be doing it once again with NASCAR Heat 4, with uploading a bunch of news videos on it. So thank you guys all for watching. If you guys are new, once again, don't forget to smack that sub button, comment down below your opinions about this video, and don't forget to like this video if you did enjoy it. So I will see you guys in either a live stream or another video. Remember, I do live stream NASCAR Heat 3 2019 DLC, and I do live stream Project Cars 2 and GTA 5 online for NASCAR. I do NASCAR races on GTA 5. So thank you guys all for watching. I'll see you guys, whether it's in a live stream or it is in another video. IDK out. And I got this soda.